Gapada pagariga sare dharsa sagare gapada. Hi, I'm Rohit, and welcome back to Mind on a Leash. Today we're going to talk about ego, the virtual self. Before we go into that, I'd like to just remind you about some of the things we talked about in the introductory video. And that is, the intention of this program is to help you learn how to manage your mind, how to optimize the way you use it and not let it use you, how to be the boss of your mind and be in charge of it, how to observe it, challenge it, and direct it, while at the same time being compassionate with it and learning how to soothe and make peace with it. So, with those objectives in mind, we're going to explore how the mind works, and to really get into that, we're going to need to look into the most fundamental component of the mind, and that is the ego. The Merriam-Webster Dictionary defines the ego as the self, and dictionary.com refers to it as I, or the self, once again. The Cambridge Dictionary, on the other hand, calls it the idea or opinion of yourself. Okay, to me that sounds a lot more like self-esteem. But what do they mean by the self? Is it your body? Is the self your mind? Is it your beliefs? Is it your religion, your race, your nationality? What really is the self? Who am I? It's a question that spiritual teachers have been asking over the ages, and one that humanity still struggles with till this day. Am I who I was when I was an infant, a toddler, a child? Am I who I was when I was a teenager or in my 20s? Am I who I am now? Or am I who I will be when I am old? Who is the real me? Through all these changes, I am still the same person. I mean, think about it. You might be, let's say, 30, but the person you were as a teenager, that was still you. And you feel still young. You might be 50, and you might be looking back at your life and you still feel young. It's amazing. Everything about you has changed. Your mind, your body, everything has changed, and yet you feel like the same person. Why is that? Clearly, we are the same person, and yet so much about us has changed. We'll talk about the unchanging part of ourself in another video, but for now, let's trace the development of the ever-changing self, the ego, and how it has changed over the years. As children, we were vibrant and alive. We were spontaneous, playful, carefree, innocent, and naive. We believed everything we were told. We had no idea of who we are. We learned from our caregivers. You're a boy, you're a girl, you're smart, you're stupid, you're beautiful, you're ordinary, mischievous, you're silly, whatever it is. By the age of 5, our logical mind had developed about 50%. And by the age of 8, it had developed 80%. As the logical mind developed, that child nature gradually dimmed, and we began to lose our original self. Now, the logical mind depends on a self-identity, based on which it determines its capabilities. If it believes that it is intelligent, then it opens up those capabilities within you. If it believes that it is stupid, then it shuts down certain capabilities. If it believes that it is beautiful, then you will find yourself walking a certain way and talking a certain way. But if it believes you're ugly, you're going to find yourself shutting down in certain ways and not accentuating certain aspects of yourself. In every area of our life, you will find that depending on what your mind believes about you, or how it assesses you, how it evaluates you, will determine how you function in the world. Without that self-knowledge, the mind collapses into a state of low self-esteem, self-doubt, and inertia. To create a self-identity, the logical mind collects data from the external world. And through that data, it generates a virtual self. Where does it gain this data from? Well, usually through the data inputs known as the senses, or the life events, or parents, teachers, friends, society, religion, media. There's so many sources of data that are telling us who we are and what we're capable of. This manufactured virtual self-identity is what we call the ego. The ego is who your mind thinks you are. It means that it is not who you actually are, but it is who you think you are. And that thinking, as you know, as we talked about right now, is an accumulation of evidence based upon the world around you, based on what people thought, their opinions, the experiences you had, all of that. All of that went into generating that sense of self. But are you who you think you are? What if your thinking about you changes? At times, even the most confident person can be shaken by life circumstances and begin to doubt themselves. A young and beautiful person gets old. A famous person may fade out into oblivion. A rich person may lose their wealth. At that time, who you think you are changes drastically. If we want to be in charge of our mind and the way it works, we must understand the many layers of ego and self-identity. The more we understand it, the more we can do with it, just as we do with our computer, phone, or any device that we operate. Let's start with the persona, the masks we wear, the roles we play. One of those might be as a parent. Then again, it might be as a coworker, or as a friend, or as a spouse, lover, partner. Then there is the persona of our body. We stand in the mirror adoring and looking at this body, and sometimes we hate how it looks and sometimes we love how it looks, and it keeps changing from day to day, from moment to moment. We identify with the body and are obsessed with youth, with looks, with beauty, with shape, with image. And all of that keeps changing with time. We're obsessed with our body shape. We're obsessed with our gender, our color, our race, our nationality. And all of that forms part of this physical identity. And now we take this physical identity and we want to look good. And to do that, we go out to the gym and we want to get fit. And we put on makeup. And we go through all kinds of fashion. And we smile, maybe with fake smiles, to impress the world that we're happy and we're feeling good and we're great. We have certain attributes and qualities. We might be athletic, creative, adventurous, intelligent, or we might be a nerd. We might be an empath, a healer, an introvert, an extrovert. Then there is our career. We might have a job, we might be in business, we might be an entrepreneur, a politician, a farmer, a doctor, a pilot. You see, each of these things determines who we think we are. If we have a job, we think of ourselves a certain way. If we have a business and we have many employees working under us, we think of ourselves a certain way. If we're a farmer, we feel and we think of ourselves a certain way. And if we are a doctor or a pilot, we have a different conception of ourselves. And then there is wealth. Some of us are rich, some of us are middle class, some of us are poor, and some of us are homeless. And all of that determines how we think and feel about ourselves. So what is the agenda of the ego in all of this? Why does the ego wear these different faces? What is the hidden need or purpose that all of this endeavor is serving? Behind everything the ego does is the need to be liked, to be accepted, to be adored, to be admired, be respected, and ultimately to be loved. All of us want this. Why? Why does the ego need all this? The simple answer might be to preserve what it has created. Remember that virtual self that the ego created? Well, it's kind of fragile. And because it's fragile, the ego needs to preserve that. And to preserve that, it needs to maintain all the pieces and keep them in place. Because if that fell apart and was destroyed, then the software of our mind would get corrupted and collapse into chaos. Is there a state beyond ego? Is there a way to go beyond the ego and find a lasting sense of self, one that is unshakable, one that isn't so delicate and fragile and needing to be preserved? Is there a way to actually attain lasting peace, happiness, abundance, and all that we desire? Absolutely yes. But first, we must break the mesmerizing spell that the ego has over us. We don't see the world as it is or people as they are. We see, hear, and experience the world through the filters of the ego. All our thoughts, our emotions, and beliefs are colored by the distortions and the filters of the ego. The ego is the perceiver, the distorter, and the experiencer. But is it accurate? Is it giving us the experience that we desire? The ego generates desires. Behind its multitude of desires is a longing for peace, happiness, love, and abundance. All 8 billion of us are chasing the same desires, and even the handful who attain them never feel fulfilled. Why is that? Is the ego perhaps incapable of giving us what it desires? Are we on a treadmill, on a wild goose chase, chasing a mirage that can never be fulfilled? Or perhaps what we desire can be fulfilled, but not by relying on the body, mind, ego, or the things of the world. Maybe we need to look elsewhere. In the following videos, we will explore another possibility: the unchanging self, sometimes referred to as the authentic self or the soul. We will explore how this can radically shift our perspective and help us take back power from our mind so that we can guide it and make it peaceful finally. At the same time, we will need to understand how the mind and ego work and how to keep them healthy. It may feel like a lot of work in the beginning, but I promise you, it gets easier and easier as you understand and, most importantly, apply the principles that you're about to learn.